Welcome back. We will be working in the second part of lesson 3-1 and writing linear equations today. So we are primarily going to focus on standard form. It is the final linear form that we will work with. We know slope-intercept form, we know point-slope form, we can find slope, and so the last way to represent a linear equation is by writing it in standard form. Standard form happens when we typically use word problems. And so a way that we can write standard form is with ax plus by equals c, where a, b, and c are numbers. So for example, an equation in standard form might look like 2x plus 5y equals 17, for example. This is not in slope-intercept form. It is in standard form because the x and the y are on the left-hand side of the equation. There are no fractions involved whatsoever. The number that is in the a positions, I'm going to underline it in yellow, has to be bigger than 0, so there can be no negatives. And I'll show you how to get rid of them when we do work with them. A and B are both not 0. So you have to have at least one of those values in there for A and B. So it can't just be like random equals C. It needs to have a value for X or Y. And then A, B, and C, those three numbers have a greatest common factor of 1. So what that means is if I have my equation 12x plus 10y equals 16, for example. I'm looking at this. There are no fractions. There are numbers for A and B. The number in front of the x, the a in this case, the 12 is positive, it's bigger than 0, but it doesn't follow the last rule, which is that a, b, and c have to have a greatest common factor of 1. So what I mean by that is there is a number that I can divide out from every single number in this equation. I can divide everything by 2. And it has to be everything. Otherwise, you change the values of our equation. I'll show you that what we found here, 12x plus 10y equals 16, and if we divide everything by 2, 6x plus 5y equals 8, these are equivalent. They are the same thing, but standard form says that I have to divide out the common factor. As I just mentioned, that the equation that we found, or we were given, 12x plus 10y equals 16, looks like this on a graph. And you'll see here that when we divided everything by 2, 6x plus 5y equals 8, it's the same line. So I can eliminate the lines here, and you can see that they're flashing blue and red. That's because they are the same line. That means we've done our math correctly. So now we are going to take an equation that is written in a different form and write it in standard form. So our first goal is to get the x's and the y's on the left-hand side of the equation. So I have y equals 4 minus 3x. I need to move the 3x to the other side, and I'm going to do that by adding. That's going to give me 3x plus y equals 4. I moved it right to the front. I kept the y positive. Now we need to determine if it follows the rules for standard form because my x's and my y's are on the left side and any number that's not have a variable is on the right side. So here, there are no fractions, so it fits that rule. The 3 in front of the x is bigger than 0, so it is positive. That's a good thing. We have an a and a b value, so that's good. And there is not a number that can divide into 3, 1, and 4 other than 1. So this equation, 3x plus y equals 4, is done and written in standard form. It is the same thing as y equals 4 minus 3x. It's just another way to look at it. We can also take an equation that is written in point slope form and write it in standard form. So the first thing we do is we look at our equation, y minus 2 equals 5 times x minus 4, and we're going to distribute the 5. So 5 times x and 5 times negative 4, so minus 20. Then we want to move the constants. Constants are whole numbers. So we have y minus 2 equals 5x minus 20. Our constants are the 2 and the minus 2 and the minus 20. We want to get them to the same side. And I'm going to do that by adding 2 to both sides. And I get y equals 5x minus 18. And we then look at the variables. So where are my x's and y's? Okay, they need to be on the same side. So I'm going to move this 5x to the other side with subtraction. That's going to give me negative 5x plus y equals negative 18. Be careful because if you're minusing, that value is a negative. Okay, the y is positive and it will stay positive in this form when you rewrite it like I did down here. So we need to determine now if this follows the rules for standard form. Well, there are no fractions, so it works. A, however, the number in front of the x is negative 5. So this does not follow the rules for standard form. In order to get rid of a negative number in this type of equation for A, I need to multiply everything by negative 1. The entire thing gets multiplied by negative 1. So 5x, because it becomes positive, negative 1 times y is minus y. So minus 1y equals negative 1 times negative 18 is positive 18. So you're basically taking and making every sign its opposite for each piece of the equation. And if we look at greatest common factor, 5, negative 1, and 18, we are all set. So we don't have to divide anything out. It is important to know that you can have a minus in the y spot. So right here, you notice you can't have it with the negative 5, but you can have it with the y. That is allowed. So when we're going through our rules, you might notice that fractions, the first thing we have is you can't have any fractions. So to get rid of fractions, you can multiply each piece of the equation by the denominator. And you don't actually have to do this once it's been distributed. It can be the first thing that you do. And this will be kind of the hardest task that you will have. So we have y plus 2 equals 5/3 times x plus 6. I see that the denominator in my fraction is 3. So I'm going to multiply everything, including the y plus 2 on the other side, by 3. So that's going to give me 3y plus 6 because I distributed. It's going to cancel this 3 out on the bottom of our fraction. And we are going to be left with 5 times x plus 6. Now, I have just eliminated the fraction, and so I can follow the rules like I did before. I multiply 5 by x and 5 by 6. I'm leaving the 3y plus 6 alone. And I get 5x plus 30 on the right-hand side. I want to get my numbers and my letters on opposite sides. So I'm going to minus 5x from both sides. I'm going to minus 6 from both sides. And I get negative 5x plus 3y equals 24. And if I go through my steps, I notice I don't have any fractions. That's great. A is not bigger than 0. So I have to remember I have to change everything by multiplying everything by negative 1. So it's going to make the opposite, it's going to make the opposite values, positive or negative, for each piece of the equation. That is going to give me 5x minus 3y equals negative 24. And that is written in standard form. You will have the opportunity to do two on your own problems. And I have the answers written here. And on the next slide is a video of how each problem was solved. So here we are going to write each equation in standard form. You want to distribute the 7x first. Y plus 2 equals 7/8 x minus 7 times 3, which is 21 over 8. Now, 21 over 8 doesn't simplify, so we want to multiply everything by 8. All of the pieces here and all of the pieces here. So that's going to give us 8y plus 16 equals, if I multiply everything by 8, it eliminates the denominators. So we get 7x minus 21. From there, we move our numbers to one side and our numbers with variables to the other. So I did this in one swoop here. So negative 7x plus 8y equals negative 37. And we want to make sure that we're following the rules for standard form. And unfortunately, this does not. So we have to multiply everything by negative 1. So that's going to give me 7x minus 8y equals positive 37 as my final answer. For the next one, it's a little bit simpler. 2y equals 6x minus 8. I want to minus 6x from both sides. That's going to give me negative 6x plus 2y equals negative 8. From there, I am almost following all of the rules. I need to check, are there fractions? No. Is a greater than 0? No, I cannot have a negative number here. So I'm going to multiply everything by negative 1. 6x minus 2y equals positive 8. And then I want to see, is there a number that I can divide out from all three of these? And in this case, it's like reducing a fraction. And I can actually divide out a 2 from all of these. So if I do that, I get 3x minus y equals 4. And I'll show you on a graph that all of these, 2y equals 6x minus 8, and every version of this on a graph is going to be the same exact line. So we'll look at that on the next video.